can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here. I'm founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders, the founders, some you've heard of, some you've never heard of. You know, David, I love talking about the challenge stories. I had P90X founder Tony Horton on, who, yeah, we know he sold hundreds of millions of dollars of P90X, but he made money as a street mime. So the way he made food and rent money is he put his head on the street, he did street miming. And those are the things I love to hear.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
And that happens, you know, I love when people email me and go, I listened to the interview, and that person now is a real person to me. They're not just some iconic person, because all of us go through these roller coasters of business and personal. And Julie Clark of Baby Einstein, she talked about growing her company to $20 million with 5 employees selling to Disney, but she talked about beating cancer twice and kind of how hard that was. And Atari founder Nolan Bushnell talked about, you know, he used Steve Jobs as mentor. He talked about how Steve Jobs offered him 33% of Apple for $50,000 and why he said no. And also when he lost his house, he took his family on an around the world journey. They didn't know that they lost the house, but he had so many friends in so many countries, they just stayed at people's houses all across the world and did like a trip around the world. So anyways, amazing people, like we have today's guest, and I'm going to introduce in a second, who I consider a friend, a mentor, a colleague. And, but this episode is brought to you by Rise 25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. And we help B2B businesses connect to their Dream 100 clients and referral partners. And help you run your podcast so it generates ROI for you. And it's been the best thing I've done for my business and my life, because I've made amazing friends. I've been to weddings, gone on vacations, and it's a lot more personal than even business for me, because I started podcasting by an inspiration from my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and him and his brother were concentration camp survivors in Nazi Germany, and they were the only members of their family to survive. But what does that have to do with podcasting? Well, his legacy lives on because the Holocaust Foundation did an interview with him. And so it really inspired me. I picture this as leaving a legacy for my guests and myself. And you can go to my About page on Inspired Insider, where I have the full interview of the person from the Holocaust Foundation interviewing my grandfather. And it's really powerful. It gives me gratitude, appreciation for life and just the small things. And so if you have questions about podcasting, you know, I think every business should have one, obviously. And you go to rise25.com or support@rise25media.com if you have questions. Now to today's guest, I want to give a shout out to Tony G of Ship Offers and Roland Frazier. You know, I've known David for a long time, and we were on a joint call, all of us. And I was like, I am like so embarrassed. I should have dated on years and years ago, multiple times. So today's guest, you know, there are people in this world, David, that I highly respect, and I observe that they are behind the scenes making everything happen. And they're the source of making sure certain really high profile people know each other. And you're one of those people. And I consider you a friend, a mentor, a colleague. And if you don't know David, he runs the infamous Internet Marketing Party. He's done so for the past over a decade with iconic speakers and attendees, Jay Abraham, Ryan Dice, Clay Collins of Lead Pages, and many, many more. What people don't know, if you only know him in that realm, that one-dimensional realm, is he runs a licensing company, a beauty brand, a health marketing company. And I think, you know, David, I was like, how do I prepare for this? I know David. Well, I was reading, like, Lee Richter, who is a mutual friend of us, summed it up actually perfectly. She said he's an incredible entrepreneur, leader in digital marketing space. He has a genuine interest to connect with people. It is clearly evident, and he knows how to elevate people and companies. And he is a genius at creating meaningful connections. And so if you get a chance to go to his events or collaborate with him, do it. So David, thanks for being here. And I was thinking, who are the biggest givers in this universe? And that's who I want to share with the world. And I consider you one of those people. So.
Wow. Well, all I want to know is I want to know this David Gonzalez guy. Dude, I think that may very well be, if I can't think of a better introduction I've ever had. So thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And I am geared up and ready to provide as much value as I can to your audience.
Yeah. I feel like whenever we talk, it's really powerful. So who do you consider the biggest givers in this universe, in your givers universe?
Man, biggest givers in this universe to me. So a couple of them are no longer living, and they're my two favorite heroes, human living heroes, and one of them, or that have lived, that we know, are Buckminster Fuller and Nikola Tesla.
And what about that is living?
That is living.
Yeah.
Mohammed Yunus of Grameen Bank. I'd say there's a couple of others that geez, that's a really good question. Because my brain goes to like the penultimate, like biggest of the big. There's a gentleman named Manoj Bhargava that he's the founder of 4 Hour Energy. Is it 4 Hour Energy or 5 Hour Energy? And he pledged to give 99.9% of his he's worth over $4 billion to humanity for things that will serve the most people, that will, like, he's looking at using engineering and innovation and the best minds available to create, how can we make the most impact with that's going to help the biggest swaths of humanity, not like, you know what I mean? So like one of the things he did is he created these mechanisms that go out into the ocean, and they're like the size of a big diesel engine, and it uses the sun's power to evaporate the salt water. Then it takes that salt water, the solar power also takes a generator and pumps back the evaporated water, and it'll do 1,000 gallons of fresh, clean drinking water an hour. And you can put a whole tanker with these things on them and have an array of 1,000 of these. So you could be doing over 1 million gallons of water, like with like no. And so he solved that, but like, that's one of them. Another one is, kind of like the stuff that Bill Gates is doing. And so, yeah, to me, givers are not about like, oh, I gave this much to this fund or this foundation, but they're doing things for all of humanity, and not just the rich, not just the poor, but that when it gets done, I'm like Buckminster Fuller had this thought, and there were 4 billion people on the planet when he said this, which was in the 70s. And he said there are 4 billion billionaires on he called it spaceship Earth, because this is a spaceship. We have a fuel source. It's the sun. And we do have a protective covering. It's called the atmosphere. And we're hurling through space on this spaceship, and we're just riders on it. Like, and we came from it. But like, it's like, and when you look at it that way, he also created this map that made all the 7 continents one, because he made little triangles all over it. It calls the Dymaxion map. And when you unfold it, you can fold it out like this, and it doesn't have any distortion. If I draw something on a piece of paper and then I put it onto a globe, it's going to have a lot of distortion at different points. So interestingly enough, on that distortive map, the United States looks about the same size as Africa, because Africa's down here and the United States is here. But when you unfold the Dymaxion map, the United States fits inside of Africa 4 or 5 times.
So where did you?
Let me tell you this. All of a sudden, the entire map, you see Africa's connected to Asia's connected to the North Pole, which is connected to Canada, which is connected to Russia, which is connected to, Alaska, which is connected to the United States, which is connected to South America, and you see one giant, enormous continent that you wouldn't have been able to see the other way. And when you see it that way, you see it's not us versus them. It's all one big thing. And so to me, the biggest givers are anyone who thinks of humanity as one, and not from like a woo-woo, like kumbaya kind of sense, but literally we are on a spaceship as one. We all like, that's one of the things that I'm really digging about COVID, and that I thought that like it would take aliens, like nefarious aliens, to do, is to make us all, and I don't think it's done it yet, but if things go a certain way, then Bucky wrote a book called Utopia or Oblivion. Critical path. Like, those are the two options. There is no like, oh, we might be okay. No, we're either going to obliterate ourselves or we're going to create utopia. And the reason there's 4 billion billionaires is because there's enough resources on this planet, on this spaceship, for every one of us to be a billionaire. The only reason we're not is because of the way we think about things. And so that, to me, like, I can't think of anything that's more penultimate as far as being a giver than giving to every man, woman, child, whether they're anywhere on the spectrum from good to evil, rich to poor, smart to dumb, anything like that. Like, I think if everybody has equal resources, I'm not talking about socialism. I'm talking literally, there's enough water, there's enough food, there's enough shelter, there's enough, all the stuff we want, there's enough ability to travel. Like, anything we could possibly want, every single one of us could have as much of it as we want.
So the problem is what?
The problem is the thinking that God is here from all the way back to when this is all stuff that he talks about. And wow, this is crazy. Like, but essentially at one point we were just like, ugh, like kill.
I'm
and then
still like that, David.
Yeah. No. But like, as far as, but like, as far as like, we didn't have any, like, we were just like lived in our cave kind of thing. And then at one point we were like, oh, well, like, we figured out our area, and then somebody was like, hey, let's put a boat in the water and see how far we can go. And then they went far and started conquering other people, and they're like, oh, I got all the gold. Like, I want more gold. I want more gold than that guy. And then there's this thinking of like, well, I want to have the biggest castle and the most gold, and I want to control the most people, and it's just like, that was that part of humanity. But we've reached a point now where that's not necessary anymore. But there's like, I want my God to be the God. I want my temple, my way of abortion or not abortion, or like all these things that just really don't fucking matter. They don't matter. They just don't.
How do you get people to realize that those things don't matter? Because there are, obviously that thought still prevails in certain people, right?
Yeah. I don't know. That's why, to me, the biggest givers are the ones that are actively working on those things, so that we can get to because it's not going to work. If people are going to be adamant that no, we have to do things this way, and that side is wrong and my side is right, we're going to kill ourselves. We're going to kill ourselves as a species.
We were talking before we hit record. Thanks for sharing that, by the way. I've heard Buckminster Fuller. I've never really studied deeply on his work, so I definitely wrote that down. So I appreciate that.
This is the first time I've ever really come out about that. But the depth of which you introduced me, I felt like there's been times in my life where I've had glimpses of feeling like my mission my mission as a human is to help bring Buckminster Fuller. He called himself Bucky, or Guinea Pig B, because he gave all of his life to humanity. And that's because his work didn't come to fruition in his lifetime. But just much like it took 80 years before Nikola Tesla's work started becoming, Bucky, I think, is going to be similar. And
is that why you say Tesla also, just because of the effects that
Tesla was trying to make it to where there was no meter between us and someone else. Like, oh, well, I want electricity. There's going to be this person that's going to put a meter between it. Oh, I want cancer medicine. There's going to be this company that puts, like, oh, I want to drive a car that'll go, 2,000 miles without needing a refill. There's going to be a company that, there's got to be this meter between us and the thing. That's Bucky calls
he
it.
was about eliminating that, Tesla.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. He created power and energy structures that would make it to where you could have free electricity for miles and miles and miles. Like there was no wires necessary. You know how like now you can just like put your phone on a thing and it charges. Well, but it needs to physically be connected. He had a thing where he would just be like, he knew where to put these rods. I don't believe Tesla was a full human. I genuinely believe that. I don't genuinely believe it, but I don't disbelieve that Tesla wasn't part something else. And I think anybody that doesn't think that there's a high probability and likelihood of other intelligent beings is, my internet connection is getting unstable.
No, I got you.
I do believe in kismet and synchronicity, but my internet just got stable. Yeah, man. I think that then if you were to take every single sand on the beach, all the beaches in the world, there's more than that number of galaxies in the universe. And we don't even know most of them. So the idea of us being the only intelligent life
is
and
egocentric.
all of that exorbitant. It's silly. And so I don't think that Tesla was fully human. And what he was trying to do is create a reality. Man, this is going to sound like, I hope this doesn't come off as conspiracy theory or nut case, but like we're in COVID right now and I'm just going to speak my truth. And to make humans like one whole, that like there's no like, oh well, I got a bigger oceanfront property and bigger yacht and I don't know if that's ever fixable, but yeah, man, I think nobody has to work. I don't think, to me, that's one of the big things, is to make it to where no one has to work. Like everyone can just do like if every single, right now they're passing out $1,200 checks to people that made less than $75,000. Somebody was telling me yesterday, there's people bragging about they got their $1,200 check. And he's like, I wouldn't be bragging about that if you're like a big internet guru, because that means you made less than $75,000 last.
Yeah, if they had a picture of their Ferrari and private plane,
you're basically announcing to the world, like,
right? That's funny. That's funny. That's very true.
Anyway, that's just it. But the point, it's just like, oh, the COVID is the big reveal. We were talking about that, but yeah, I when I think about what was I? Damn, that threw me off. You had just asked me a question, and I was saying, that I don't. Yeah, if every single human, not just in the U.S., but human, got not a $1,200 check, but an $800 million check, what would everyone do?
That sounds scary to me. Actually,
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Seriously, what about that sounds scary to you?
I mean, it depends. I guess what they use it for, right? I mean, if you have an abundance of money,
yeah.
What stages do people go through? Like considering maybe they haven't had it. Like you look at lottery winners. I don't know what the stats are, right? Within a certain period of time, they blow all of it.
Yeah, but think about it. Like if every single person decides they want to go get a Ferrari, a Rolls Royce, they want to go to Vegas. I mean, they have so much money they can reopen the casinos. Like, okay, like things reach a point of like, okay, you got a Ferrari, I got a Ferrari. Like everybody has a Ferrari. Who cares? Like we all have Ferraris now. There become less.
They become a celebrity. So you get $800 million, David.
Everyone.
What do you do?
If I'm part of the everyone, or if I just get it and not everyone else does. You see how that's different?
How is it different? Tell me.
Oh, it's so different. Because if every single man, woman, and child has $800 million, the things that I would probably want to think about or do would be different. They would be different. I would want to get certain experiences that would have innate intrinsic value because I'm one of a few people that has that level of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if everyone has that level of wealth, then I'm just thinking to myself, where do I derive deep joy?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with a presidential suite hotel, a view, like some really meaningful, joyful things.
Yeah. I'm gonna, I'll push back a little bit on you.
Okay,
I don't know if you would do anything different if everyone had $800 million or if you just had it. Like if you wanted an experience,
yeah, I would.
I don't know if you would do it for the status of it.
No.
Would you do it for the status of it?
Like if everyone got $800 million, I would probably, the things that I would want and do would be more, they would be more like consumptive and egoic. Like,
you think?
Whereas if everyone, if I'm the only one that got it, I would want to do things that would make everyone getting one happen. Does that make sense?
So
like I would feel completely free to just dive all into the work of Buckminster Fuller, Nikola Tesla, Manoj, Bhargava, like people that are trying to figure out how does all of humanity win with not the detriment of anyone.
So would that change from everyone getting it or just you? That notion?
No, because if everyone got it, then they'd figure it out on themselves. You know, I mean, be like, okay, everyone has $800 million. Everyone. Prisoners in prison right now, they get all of them, no matter what crime they did, whether it's, Unabomber, he gets $800 million, but so does the prison worker. So does everyone. Everyone. This is weird because okay, if everyone got that, like this isn't about everyone getting an $800 million check. This is about what would they do,
right?
If they didn't have to work, right?
Yeah.
If no one had to work, no one. So like the prison guard doesn't have to work anymore. There's going to be some people that say, you know what? I don't have to work anymore, but I'm not okay with the people that are in prison that did the things that they did. They're really like dangerous to humanity being on the loose. So I'm going to donate my time. Who of us wants to donate our time to make sure that these people stay here? And by the way, you people that are in there, sorry, but like, let's get you the best psychotherapists and the best psychedelic therapies to help you let's wash that evil out of you and then come up with some amazing tests to see if they genuinely are ready to be put back into humanity. Like, dude, I'm just telling you what's there for me. Like,
so what would you do? Okay, assuming, let's say you got $800 million. Not everyone gets $800 million. Okay. How does that change what you do, or what do you do?
Oh, because if everyone gets it, then I'm thinking like, oh wow, like it reminds me of recess at school, like when it was a field day, like there's no homework, there's no, like, the only objective for everyone is to have fun. So I would be like, hey, shit, it's like this is the absolute Disney World globally. Every single person is at Disney World today. Versus, oh wow, Walt Disney's great granddaughter just found out about me, heard this interview, and decided she wants to give me $800 million.
Right.
I don't know if you've heard of her, but she will not fly on a private plane. She will not, like, 'cause she's like, one day she was like, a teenager and had to go somewhere, and there was a Boeing 747 that they put her on, and she was literally the only person on there, and she was like, "This is fucked." Like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so she refuses, and she won't even. She just flies on regular airplanes, um, um, and is very, very much into like what the hell, like people that are billionaires, like they're very, very wasteful and very like
Mm.
not, So anyway, yeah, if only I got $800 million, I would be like, okay, let's bring the Manoj Bhargavas, like I don't even remember her name right now, the people that are running the Buckminster Fuller Institute together, and let's come up with a plan that can help, like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They're working on, like, there's certain things they're working on that I believe are questionable, and then there's certain things that I believe they're working on that are amazing. Um, and so,
What would
yeah,
you work on? Like your David
I,
Gonzalez
I,
Foundation?
I'd work on kind of like what I've done in the internet marketing space, which is curating all of the best, brightest, bleeding edge humanists that, like, because there's a book out there that I haven't yet read, but it was highly recommended, and I got the gist of it. It's a book called Winner Takes All,
Hmm.
and it's basically based on the idea that a lot of billionaires that go on and they get their billions by doing really bad things, like very win-lose kind of things, and that are not good for the greater good of humanity, or like they're like give, take, and then they like real cutthroat type practices, and then they get their billions, and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna build this big beautiful philharmonic orchestra and call it my name, and then I'll in Washington D.C. And even though I've done heinous things like that could be considered crimes against humanity, but now I get whitewashed and I have a good name because I gave this center right next to the White House, and like it was a $300 million project, and you just gave it, but it's got your name on it, and it's beautiful, and it goes toward the arts, and it makes our country more beautiful. Like, yeah, but what about all this other crap you did over here? Like, that's not okay. It's like in Prodigal Son. The prodigal son comes back and says, I'm willing to go work in the chicken coop and in the pig pen. And then the father, when he sees that, he's like, okay, he's atoned for what he, for being a jerk off. Like, as opposed to just being like, oh, I got all this money, I'm going to do something that's really cool, and all of a sudden my name's good. Like, So I would, the part of what the person that recommended this book to me said is, she said, find me a billionaire with empathy, and then I will hold them in high regards. So I would, if I got $800 million, I would find people that have true, deep, what do they do when no one's watching type of empathy.
Yeah.
I would fucking figure out who's given the most anonymously. I would get a private detective, like Better Call Saul style, like people that get really like Mike, and really find out like who are the people that are doing the most best generous work and aren't taking any credit for it.
Well, that's why I asked the
I would
first
put
question.
all of them in a think tank.
Yeah.
I would put all of them in a think tank, and it would probably be anonymous because I wouldn't want their lives to be in jeopardy by people that want shit. I don't even know if I want this to be put out there on a podcast, because I do believe that the world's getting smaller and smaller, and we're getting to know like who, like I'm believing more and more that there is this genuine fight between good and evil. I want it all versus let's all just
the pandemic reveal. That's it's sort of what you're talking about, right?
I don't know that I would have said that, but if that lands for you, then
that's what I was asking about in the beginning, who you consider like some of the biggest givers, because those people are kind of behind the scenes. They don't feel the need necessarily to be front and center all the time, and they're just doing their thing. trying to make a contribution and don't feel as much of a need for the recognition, I guess, the way I see it. So I was curious of what you would say, because there's people, like you said, a couple of people I've never heard of, and maybe they're just kind of not giving anonymously on purpose, but they're not seeking all of the recognition for it.
Yeah.
There's two things I want to talk about. David, it's funny. Like, I just kind of go where the conversation takes us, because originally I'm like, yeah, I want people to know. I mean, Dave has an internet marketing party. He does licensing. He has a beauty brand. But you're such a deep thinker that we'll just go with the deep thinking aspect. And I know we have a little bit of time before you have your next call. So I had pandemic reveal and a shift to going all in. So I don't know, in the last couple minutes, which one strikes your fancy of be most interesting for you to chat about?
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna text because you can edit this part out.
So I was saying shift of going all in or pandemic reveal. Which is most interesting to you right now?
Can you ask the question again?
We are talking before we hit record, and we're talking about pandemic reveals, and I was going to explore what you meant by that for yourself or what you're seeing. And you were saying been this shift for you of going all in.
So is that an or question? I meant.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about going all in and the shift, and maybe a little bit about what struck you to go down that path a little bit with what did your mentor say to you?
Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I partnered with, I'm much more of a visionary on the traction rocket fuel framework than an integrator. And
shout out to Gino Wickman and Mark Winters from Rocket Fuel. Yeah.
And that thank you guys, because it's changed my life. If you're listening, it's been a huge impact for me.
I actually talked to Mark this week. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to email when we get off and tell him you said that.
Oh, cool. Thanks. So my wife and I have always run our businesses together, and for 20 years or so. And we didn't realize it until that book came into the fold, that she was serving as my integrator and I was the visionary. But if we had to rate us from 1 to 10 on our strength in either of those, I would give myself like a 6 on visionary. I'm not like an off the charts visionary. I'm like a 6, but she's like a 5 on integrator. So if we were playing, arm wrestling, I was winning most of the time, which was keeping me at a, $100,000 to $150,000 a year in revenue and income. And then it wasn't until I partnered with an integrator that my income more than tripled and the workload more than diminished. But part of what that integrator, his name's Gonzalez, by the way, Paternoster. Part of what that partnership did is he brought with it the idea and the concept of going all in and having extreme ownership. And I did that so effectively that it generated an enormous amount of success, an enormous amount of attention, an enormous amount of all of the trappings that come with it. And one of the negative trappings that comes with it is more people want to do business with you, right?
More opportunities.
And one of the things that Gonzalo's big on is when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to 10 things, and you have to know that. And so I said no for 2.5 years. And then at the end of that 2.5 year period, there was some of the things that started coming on to the plate as far as opportunities and possibilities were so exquisite that it was like, I even brought them to him and I was like, dude, what do you think about this? And he's like, wow, that's good. We should, do you want me in on that one, or do you want to do that one alone? You know what I mean? And so
I know I said say no, but let's do that one. Yeah.
Well, maybe because sometimes they just make sense, right? Like the landlord in your building says, hey, I think I'm going to sell the building. I might give you first right of refusal since you're already a tenant. Like, that's not necessarily something you should just blanket say no to, because you said you're saying no to all opportunities. You should that one's worth like really putting on the decision table, because it could accelerate the growth of what you're currently working on. That is the only thing you've said yes to. So anyway, with that in mind, uh, I said yes to one thing, and then as a result of saying yes to that one thing, it was a very natural yes to a secondary thing, which became a client to the first thing I said yes to. And then once that happened, it was like, wow, this is life's better this way. And then a tertiary thing came along that wasn't as related, but it just felt like, heck, this third thing, I didn't have to do anything operationally minded. All I had to do is just be me, kind of like just show up, kind of like showtime, just walk around and like say hi to people. Like, it's almost like, really, you want me as a partner for that? Like, yeah, the cachet you bring, the network you like. What do you mean you will want you as like a strategic advisor? But it almost felt like being a made man. Like, oh, okay, like you're gonna put me in on this deal just like because of what you've done for the last 10 years. And I was like, oh yeah. And then when I did that, I was like, oh, well, this fourth one is just like that. And everything was moving along beautifully until bang, COVID-19 pandemic, global pandemic, and everything just starts to kind of like, this goes on break and that, like, and what seemed like it was rolling really beautifully and like it was all kind of tied and folded into each other. The pandemic has, I've been calling it the great reveal, has really revealed that some of those things might have been a little bit more distracting now that it's kind of like when you do triage, right? Like, oh, we have a patient over here who's got a hangnail, but they're a professional pianist and they won't be able to play well, so that it is important. But then you've got somebody over here that's got like a gunshot wound to the leg, to the ankle, and then a person over here who's the guy literally like, took too much. I don't know, maybe whatever. Like it goes on a ranking scale of like, you got somebody who's literally having a stroke or a heart attack. You've got to handle that one first. It doesn't mean the pianist isn't important. But in the same way, this pandemic has helped me realize that those things were fine when I had plenty of doctors, nurses, operating rooms, and emergency rooms. And sometimes right now, those aren't there, and I'm having to really think through what is most important. And going all in is becoming more important.
Mm.
So I think that's all I've got to say about that. I felt like Forrest Gump there.
What is most important right now for you in your world?
What's most important is becoming really clear on how to align what I'm working on with where I want to end up and what really matters. And what really matters is my family, my health, and my betterment of humanity. Like if I had to pinpoint three things, because if I'm not healthy, those other things, the two things don't matter. And if I don't have my family, then like I'm kind of alone. And like, but bettering human, if I can have those three things, it's like everything's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's great.
So, David, I always ask, since this Inspired Insider, what's been a low moment that you had to really push through? And also on the flip side, what's been a proud moment that you're especially proud of? So we'll start with what's been a challenging low moment.
A challenging low moment has been one where I think everyone has at some point in their life thought of suicide, but I don't think most people have gone to the point, or maybe, you're blessed if you haven't gone to the point where you actually started thinking about how to do it or started asking specific questions about it. And I did that once, to buckets and buckets of tears, and and absolute excruciating, now I know, was tremendous depression based on egoic crushing. I had over $130,000 worth of personal unsecured debt, that I didn't know I had until I really started putting pencil to paper, and all of our credit cards were maxed out. And I felt totally ashamed, totally like a failure, and just like the best option for my family and my legacy was to figure out how I could, uh, not be on the planet anymore without anyone finding out that I did it. Part of me doesn't even want to put that on recording, because if one of these days I die in a weird way, like, I don't want the life insurance companies to be like, he's thought about this before. Yeah. But, yeah, I I thought about that, and it was horrendous, and I got out of it, and now my net worth is more than triple what my what
How did you
my
get out of that?
net was.
Being
I got
from
out
like
of it.
such a low point to.
Well, one, I mean, I part of got out of it because I didn't want my wife and daughter to hear me bawling in the closet. I was like literally close myself in the bedroom closet, because I knew that there was lots of, clothing in there and stuff that would make it quiet. Not because I was planning on doing anything there,
Yeah.
but that's where I really finally let loose that, like, fuck, like, I'm a failure. I've got all this debt. I have no way of getting out. I have nothing on the horizon. I don't want this to be what my family goes through. I don't want to, like. So I was like, what's
Mm.
and when I finally realized, like, okay, I gotta like clean up and wake up and wash myself out of this like blubbering mess, I thought about a friend of mine who I had helped out of a really like sticky situation. He was going through a really horrible divorce with a woman who had an addiction and some clear mental illness, but she did a good enough job of hiding the addiction and putting on a different face when she would go into court, and she had an amazing attorney. So it was just really weird situation where I had to help him with some stuff that was kind of, I put myself at risk, but it was the right thing to do. It was to help some of his pets that she was holding hostage, and like, it was weird time, long time ago, and I thought of him because I had helped him in such a deep, important, vulnerable point of his life,
Mm.
that I reached out to him, and I just felt like I can tell you what's up, and I'm thinking this, and
Mm.
he gave me the assignment to go to the mirror, and just know that this might take 5 minutes, this could take 5 hours, but to look deep into the core of my pupils until knew that I was absolutely positively looking, thinking, talking about me, only me, nothing else distracting, and to just tell myself over and over, this too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass, until I believe it. And that I did not have permission to look away from the mirror until I absolutely started to believe it. And it took me about 15-20 minutes, and I started laughing, and then I just like broke the thing, and like it broke that like dark cloud.
Yeah.
So that's
Thanks for sharing that. First of all, it's really hard to share those things, and I guarantee you that someone's going to hear that and who's going through it, or know someone who's going to go through this, and give that advice to someone who's going through a really tough time. And so you sharing it is going to help, even if it helps one person, which it will, at least one. It's worth being vulnerable and sharing like such a tough thing to share. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and now on the flip side, a proud moment, a big milestone, something, you always hear, David, overnight success after 10 years or 20 years or whatever. Yeah. What's been that maybe moment for you, or a moment? There's probably many moments, but.
Yeah, there's many. I'm thinking what mind was more family oriented
Yeah.
than business oriented.
Sure.
But and I have a handful of these, but there was one day that my daughter, who's 18 now, but she was 17 at the time, I believe, was in a real funk, like a real funk. And she was just having like she was just in a space where, like, a headspace that I could tell she wasn't clinically depressed. She was like in that range. And just I've done my best to not be an overbearing parent, to be an inspirational parent, and to give her the resources she needs if and when she asks or needs them. But we've always had kind of like she's been more of a mama's girl than a daddy's girl, you
I have
know?
2 of those. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's always kind of resisted my advice and my wisdom, and it's been a very painful thing. But every once in a while, we'll have cracks in that will
Mm,
just like
mm.
it's enough to even like make me emotional right now. But one such moment was she was having a really, really tough epoch, like a period of weeks, for the epoch in the context of teenager, right? And it was, and the long and the short of it is I asked her if she was willing to do a little quick exercise, and she was in a low enough place that she's like, yeah, yeah, what is it? And I said, I want you to take a piece of paper, and on the left side of the paper, I want you to to create a little thunderbolt.
Mhm.
And on the right side, I want you to create a number. And I'm sorry, I messed up the punchline. I said, I want you to write the number of things on the left side that are things where you're creating. And on the right side, I want things that you have control over, and that you can like, what's the word, like can like ignite, that you can have agency over, versus things that you don't or can't.
Mhm.
And also it was create versus consume. And she made a list, and I was expecting that the things that were going to be that it was going to be really long on the consume and no agency versus the other, and it wasn't. It was the other way around. And I was like, what the hell? Because she was really good at knowing how much stuff she could control and da da da. And then, so on the moment, I had to, on the fly, say, okay, good. That's step one. Step two is I want you to write a little lightning bolt and a number. And the lightning bolt is how much energy do you derive from it? And the number is how much energy does it take for you to kickstart it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like surfing through TikTok videos, which are really fun and easy to like, it's like never ending popcorn for your what is it, the
The adrenaline rush or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
the other, it's another chemical, but yeah, you get it. Like she wrote down like how much gratification and satisfaction those things gave her, and they were really low numbers. But the number of how much it took was also really low. And the things that had higher numbers had higher gratification. And she couldn't even finish the list. And she's like, thank you, Dad. She threw her hands around my shoulders, and like it was just like I just was streaming crying, but from pride and from joy. That
Mm.
like 20 minutes later, I asked her what she was up to, and she was still like making plans on how she could on her own do more of the things that 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 required more of her to start and to do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sum it up really quickly, just so people can follow along. So there's
Yeah.
2 columns, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left is the things that you actually have control over that you can create. And then on the right is things that you don't have control over that you don't create. Is that right?
Yeah, you consume them.
You consume them. Okay.
Yeah. Or you like, it's either you consume them or you don't have control over them. Like getting invited to a sleepover that the other people in your core group did get invited to. Right.
Yeah. Because I'm going to use this exercise. I want to make sure I'm clear on it for my two daughters who are 6 and 8. So I'm sure in 10 years, I'll be having this exact same conversation. So I want to make sure I get it right. So the right is you consume.
Yeah. You consume them or you don't have control over them.
Okay. And then the left is you create them.
And you do have control over them.
And you do have control. And then you write those down.
Just take inventory of how many activities they're engaging in that are on the left versus what are on the right. And chances are they're consuming more or participating and giving more value to things that they don't have control over.
So focusing on the left column.
Yeah. And what she surprised me with was she had a bigger list on this side, on the left column. But I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, okay, but now let's add the energy that it gives you, the oomph that it gives you, and the energy that it takes required to kickstart it. And the things that were on the right had very little energy and very little kickstart, and the things that were on the left had very high energy and very high kickstart. But it was revealed.
So just identifying those things is powerful.
Yeah,
that you actually have control over.
Yeah, and like because I think we just get into this funk where we're just like, oh, well, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna do this thing, and before you realize it, like shit, there's not, like I'm engaging in so many things that that I'm just consuming or that I don't have control over.
Yeah.
So of course I'm gonna be depressed.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you have to hop off, David. So thank you. First of all, thank you so much. Where should we point people online to learn more, check out more of what you have going on? I mean, internetmarketingparty.com is obviously an obvious one.
And David Gonzalez Agency.
DavidGonzalezAgency.com. And thank you so much, David.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate you.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I feel like $100 grand.